Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Allen, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Maddie Edwards. We warmly welcome the family of Private Walter Warwick Fraser, whose story will be told shortly. We also welcome the 1 Recruit Training Unit from the Royal Australian Air Force Base in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Walter Warwick Fraser. Walter Fraser was born on the 15th of June 1895 in the Melbourne suburb of Footscray. Affectionately known as Wally, he was one of 6 children born to James and Eliza Fraser. He received his education at the local state school and later took up employment as a blacksmith striker before moving to Gisborne. There, he continued his trade. He joined the local football team where he was one of their star players. At the outbreak of the war in 1914, he was serving in the militia. Wally Fraser enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 10th of September 1914, weeks after the declaration of war. He was assigned to the 14th Battalion and began a short period of training at Broadmeadows Camp in Victoria. He embarked for active service in late December on board the troop ship Ulysses. Private Fraser arrived in Egypt on the 31st of January 1915. There, his unit became part of the New Zealand and Australian Division, which would go on to fight in Turkey. From his camp in April, he wrote home to his family. "Well, we have finished our training and are about to go into action not many days travelling from here. While we were out skirmishing to fill in the time, the Colonel gave us a lecture on our future. We were to land with our water bottles filled and our iron ration, which is composed of a dozen biscuits, a small package of cocoa and so on. Before we can get any more, we will have to drive the Turks back and take the water they are using. He estimates it is a 3-day job. Yesterday we marched through Cairo, all through the main streets with our fixed bayonets. The 14th are the pride of Egypt." Wally Fraser went ashore with his battalion in the afternoon on the 25th of April 1915, after helping to load wounded men from the first wave onto their ship. When they reached the beach, they were ordered to entrench themselves and spent several days fighting off Turkish counterattacks. By the end of the month, Wally's unit was holding the line around Courtney's and Quinn's posts, sapping and improving trenches under constant machine gun and shrapnel fire. On the 1st of May 1915, the enemy made another attempt to push through the Anzac lines. More than 500 enemy soldiers attacked the 15th position at Courtney's post in the early hours of the morning. Though the attack was repulsed, the British suffered multiple casualties. Among the dead was Private Wally Fraser, who was killed in action a week after arriving on the peninsula. His platoon sergeant wrote to Wally's brother, William, to describe his final moments. "I fought in the same trench as Wally and know that as a fighter, he was second to none. The previous attack to the one in which Wally was killed lasted long enough for him to ruin 2 rifles. He used them so rapidly and was simply careless of cover and held the enemy in absolute contempt. In his last action, he used his last cartridge and said just before firing, 'I will go out for a spell when I use the last one.' He had only just fired when he was hit clean through the head and death must have been instantaneous. We buried him a few yards from where he fought his hardest fight. He lies on the crest of Courtney's post alongside 4 of his pals in death as he was alongside them in the firing line. Wally never altered and was happy in the trenches as he was all through training. I did not know him in private life, but he must have been very popular with that happy nature of his. I would like to have a platoon of Wally Frasers. It is a severe blow to you and your relatives, but it must be a wonderful consolation to know that your brother died gloriously in action, facing the enemy, the death a patriotic man like Wall would choose above others. William was killed in action 3 years later." The Fraser family later posted a memorial notice to Wally in the Age newspaper, which read, "Though the waves of the ocean divide us and you sleep on a foreign shore, remembrance is a relic that will live forevermore." Private Wally Fraser was 19 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Walter Warwick Fraser, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.